Hi guys, as we saw in the last chapter, we covered Laplace transform and I told you that Laplace transform was generalization of the Fourier transform. Because Fourier transform was restricted to a limited set of signals, like the signals should be bounded and stable. But in case of Laplace transform, we removed that condition and it was generalization of the Fourier transform and it was applicable for a wide range of signals. Similarly, for discrete time signals, we define Z transform. Okay, here we define Z transform, and for continuous time signals we have Laplace transform. Okay, the basic objective of both the transforms is same, that is we need a generalized transform which can take care about the wide variety of signals. Okay, so here Z will be a complex number, just like we deal with complex numbers. Z is a complex number. Okay, so let us see how we will define Z transform. So basically Z transform of a signal x of n would be represented by capital X Z. Now this capital X Z is equal to summation from n is equal to minus infinity to infinity xn Z of minus n. Okay, now if I say since Z is a complex number, Z is r e raised to power minus j omega, e raised to power j omega, let us say, then xz would be sigma n is equal to minus infinity up to infinity xn r raised to power minus n e raised to power minus j omega n. Now if I say r is equal to 1, that is unit circle, that is the circle of unit radius. So xz would be sigma n is equal to minus infinity to infinity xn e raised to power minus j omega n, which is discrete time Fourier transform. This is the definition of discrete time Fourier transform. So we can say that Z transform for unit circle converges to the Fourier transform. Okay, here if we put unit circle, it converges to Fourier transform. In Laplace we saw if we substitute s is equal to the imaginary axis, that is j omega, it converges to Fourier transform. So this is how Z is basically a generalization of the Fourier transform but in discrete domain. Laplace is a generalization of Fourier transform but in continuous time domain. So this equation is very important, the analysis equation of the Z transform. Okay, now let us see how we can take the inverse Z transform. Inverse Z transform of xz would be small xn. So xn would be represented by 1 by 2 pi j integral xz z raised to power n minus 1 dz. This integral is over a closed path. Okay, closed path where c is a closed path, so it is a closed loop integral over a closed curve c. So this will be my inverse Z transform, or we will say this will be my synthesis equation for a Z transform. Okay, so this is how we can go from time domain to the Z domain and vice versa by these two equations. Now let us see, try to find Z transform for some signals. Suppose first signal is xn is equal to a raised to the power n un. Then I would see xz is equal to sigma n is equal to minus infinity up to infinity an un z raised to power minus n. Now due to this un being 1 from 0 to infinity, this summation would be converted to n is equal to 0 to infinity an z raised to power minus n. N is equal to 0 to infinity a z inverse raised to power n. So this is a infinite GP with a common ratio a z inverse. So the infinite GP sum is first term upon 1 minus common ratio. First term is when we substitute n is equal to 0, so it will be 1 minus common ratio is a z inverse. It is equal to 1 by 1 minus a by z, or also we can say z minus z upon z minus a. But this is only applicable if this common ratio is less than 1. So mod a z inverse should be less than 1. Or what we can say is mod a by z is less than 1, mod z is greater than mod a. Okay, so this is my ROC, or region of convergence for the Z transform. It can only converge if Z is greater than mod A. So this is the equation of a circle of a radius. So Z must lie in the external of this circle. Mod Z must be greater than mod A, that is Z lies in the exterior region of a circle. Circle is given by mod Z is equal to mod A. So the exterior of that circle will be my ROC. Is it fine? So here, whenever we are finding Z transform, we are making use of the infinite GP. Let us take another signal, this time minus a raised to power n u of minus n minus 1. So if we apply Z transform again, xz would be sigma n is equal to minus infinity to infinity u of minus n minus 1 z raised to power minus n. Now this signal u of minus n minus 1 would be something like this. It will be flipped and then shifted. Flipped and then shifted by 1 in the left direction. So it will be like this. It will exist from minus 1 up to minus infinity. So this summation would be converted to n is equal to minus infinity to minus 1 minus a raised to power n z raised to power minus n. N is equal to minus infinity to minus 1 a z inverse raised to power n. Now to make it infinite GP, let us replace n by minus m. Sigma m is equal to 1 to infinity minus a z inverse minus of m, or sigma m is equal to 1 to infinity, it will be z a inverse m. So if we take, it will be first term upon 1 minus common ratio. First term is z a inverse, common ratio is 1 minus z a inverse. Okay, this will be again z upon z minus a. Is it fine? And with a minus sign, so it will be z upon z minus a. So now if we talk about ROC, I would say that ZA inverse, mod of ZA inverse should be less than 1. Mod of ZA inverse should be less than 1. So I would say mod of Z should be less than mod of A. That is, this time my ROC would be inside the circle of radius A. It would be interior region of circle of radius A. It would be this. This is the circle of radius A. So if we see here, two signals have the same Z transform, but their ROCs are different. So that is what ROC makes a Z transform unique. As in the case of Laplace transform, so specifying ROC along with the Z transform is very necessary for the uniqueness of Z transform. Otherwise, multiple signals can have the same value of Z transform. Okay, now let us see what is the relationship between S plane and Z plane. So basically we know that discrete time signal can be obtained from continuous time signal by sampling. So I would say that if I am given xt, I would take samples like x of n ts this would be called as x of n. Okay, so if we talk about Z transform and Laplace transform, there Z is equal to e raised power minus st. How we arrive at this is basically Laplace transform would be integral xt e raised power minus st dt. Now if we replace x of nts e raised power minus s nts dt. Okay, so this would be sigma xn e raised to power minus st or e raised to power st raised to the power minus n. Okay, and we know for Z transform it should be equal to sigma xn z raised to power minus n. So z would be e raised to power plus st. Okay, so this way we relate the z and s. Z is equal to e raised to the power st. Okay, so if we take what are the different transformation or what are the different mapping. Suppose s is equal to j omega, then z will be equal to e raised to power j omega t, or we can say mod z is equal to 1. So j omega x is in s plane is mapped to unit circle in z domain. Similarly, right half plane in s plane would be mapped to exterior of unit circle. Okay, and left half plane in s plane would be mapped to interior of unit circle. Okay, so same properties will exist between Laplace and Z, just that mapping is changed. J omega x is mapped to unit circle, the right half plane is mapped to exterior of unit circle, and left half plane is mapped to interior of the unit circle. Okay, this mapping has been derived keeping in mind that discrete time signal is obtained from continuous time by sampling. Okay, so as simple as that, but this mapping is very important for you because this way you can easily memorize the properties of Laplace and Z as they will be interrelated by this mapping. Okay, let us see another problem. We need to find Z transform and ROC. So the Z transform of this signal would be 1 upon 1 minus 2 Z inverse, and ROC would be mod Z is greater than 2. For this signal, it can be written as 1 by 3 raised to power n un. So its Z transform would be 1 upon 1 minus 1 by 3 Z inverse. ROC would be mod Z is greater than 1 by 3. Total signal would have a Z transform equal to 1 upon 1 minus 2 Z inverse plus 1 upon 1 minus 1 by 3 Z inverse. Now the ROC for this would be intersection of these two. Okay, so how we will find intersection? Okay, one is saying mod Z should be greater than 2. So this would be like this. This is 2 radius. Other is saying mod Z is greater than 1 by 3. Let us say this is 1 by 3. Other is saying like this region, that is outside this 1 by 3 radius, this region. Okay, so if we see intersection is coming after mod Z is greater than 2. So this will be my ROC, that is mod Z is greater than 2. So whenever there is a signal which comprises of many signals in summation, then we will need to take the intersection of ROC of individual signal. The total region of convergence would be given by intersection of individual region of convergence. Okay, Let us move on to the next problem. Now suppose I change both the signals like this. Now I told you a raised to power n un has the same z transform as minus a raised to power n u of minus n minus 1. But ROC is changed. So minus 2 raised to power n u of minus n minus 1 would have a z transform equal to z upon z minus 2. But this time ROC would be mod z is less than 2. Similarly, other signal minus 3 raised to power n u of minus n minus 1 would have a z transform of z upon z minus 3. ROC would be mod z is less than 3. So total xz would be sum of these two, z upon z minus 2 plus z upon z minus 3. Okay, and ROC would be intersection of these two. Now intersection of these two would be mod z is less than 2. Okay, the smaller of the two regions would be the intersection of the two ROC. It will be mod z is less than 2. Is it fine? Otherwise you can plot it on z plane again like this. This is 2 radius, this is 3. One is saying mod z is less than 2, other is saying mod z is less than 3. So intersection is this one only, mod z is less than 2. This will be the intersection and this will be my ROC. Okay, for the next problem, if we see, we have just changed one signal. So minus 2 raised to power n u of minus n minus 1 would be same as that earlier 2 raised to power n un, but here the ROC is changed to mod z is less than 2. For the other signal 3 raised to power minus n un, in the previous example just now we found it would be z upon z minus 1 by 3 and ROC would be mod z is greater than 1 by 3. Okay, so if we take xz would be z upon z minus 2 plus z upon z minus 1 by 3. Intersection is, it is saying it is greater than 1 by 3, it is saying less than 2. So 1 by 3 mod z is less than 2. This would be my intersection. So suppose in any case if we are unable to find any intersection, then the z transform will not exist. If there is no ROC, then z transform does not exist. Okay, in the next example we have been given again two signals. So let us see, 2 raised to power n un, it would be z upon z minus 2 and ROC would be mod z is greater than 2. In the next signal 3 raised to power minus n u of minus n minus 1, it would be z upon z minus 1 by 3 and ROC would be mod z is less than 1 by 3. Okay, so now if we take intersection of these two ROC, one is saying less than 1 by 3, one is saying greater than 2. It is impossible, any value cannot be less than 1 by 3 at the same time greater than 2, because suppose the value is 2.5, then it is not less than 1 by 3. So ROC is null, that means Z transform does not exist. Okay, so whenever you are finding Z transform of a composite signal, then you must take care to check the ROC, because in this case otherwise you could have directly written the Z transform as sum of these two signals or sum of these two values, but actually the Z transform here does not exist. Is it fine? So you need to take care of that. Now let us take a few examples how we can calculate inverse Z transform. So first method for inverse Z transform is called as partial fraction method. So suppose I give you as xz is equal to 3 minus 5 by 6 z inverse divided by 1 minus 1 by 3 z inverse 1 minus 1 by 2 z inverse. Okay, suppose this is my Z transform. So if I do partial fraction, then xz would come out to be 2 upon 1 minus 1 by 3 z inverse plus 1 upon 1 minus 1 by 4 z inverse. Okay, this will be my, so this is here is 1 by 4. Okay, so this will be my partial fraction. Now I know if we want to find the xn. So before finding xn, what we must know is the ROC. So suppose I am giving you ROC is mod z greater than 1 by 3. Suppose this is the ROC. Then I know it is greater than 1 by 3. So this will be a right-sided signal. So it will be 2 into 1 by 3 raised to the power n un. Since the value is greater than 1 by 3 will also be greater than 1 by 4, this will also be a right-sided signal. 1 by 4 raised to the power n un. This will be my signal. Okay. Next, suppose I give you ROC as, let us say, mod z is lying between 1 by 3 and 1 by 4. Sorry, 1 by 4 and 1 by 3. Now since z is greater than 1 by 4, this will be right sided, but it is less than 1 by 3, so first signal would be left sided. So xn would be minus 1 by 3 raised to the power n u of minus n minus 1 plus 1 by 4 raised to the power n un. Okay, this is right sided for this, so signal will be this. But since mod z is less than this, so it will be this value. So this way, depending upon the ROC, my signal would change. Okay, signal value would change depending upon the ROC. So specifying ROC along with the Z transform is very necessary while finding the inverse Z transform. Otherwise, inverse Z transform for the same Z can have multiple values. Next method to find the inverse Z transform is called as Cauchy residue method. So here xn, since we know it is 1 by 2 pi j integral over closed curve xz z raised to power n minus 1 dz. So for evaluating any closed curve integral of a complex variable or a complex function, we can use Cauchy residue method. So here we will say simply xn is summation of residue. Okay, it will be summation of a residue. How we will find residue? Suppose pole is at z is equal to beta of order m. The pole at z is equal to beta has a order m. So residue would be 1 upon m minus 1 factorial dm over dm minus 1 over dz m minus 1. Okay, then it would be xz z raised to power n minus 1, the function in the integral, into z minus beta raised to the power m, because z is a pole of order m. Okay, order m pole, so we will multiply it by z minus beta raised to the power m to cancel that term, and then we will put limit z tending to beta. After doing all this, we will put limiting z tending to beta to find the residue. Okay, let me demonstrate this with an example. Suppose xz is given to me as z upon z minus 2 raised to the power 3. So if you see here, pole is at z is equal to 2 and order is 3. So suppose if we want to find residue would be 1 by m minus 1 factorial, that is 3 minus 1 factorial. Okay, then derivative with respect to m minus 1, that is d square by dz square. The function would be xz into z raised to power n minus 1 into z minus pole raised to the power n. So this will get cancelled out. So 1 by 2 factorial into double derivative of z raised to power n. Okay, it would be 1 by 2, double derivative would be n minus 1 z raised to power n minus 2. Now here we will put limiting z tending to beta, that is z is equal to 2. So we will put z is equal to 2. We will get xn is equal to 1 by 2 n minus 1 into 2 raised to power n minus 2. Okay, this would be my signal xn, and we would associate here un for the right sided signal. Okay, and if it is, then ROC should be mod z is greater than 2. If we are taking un, it should be mod z greater than 2. If mod z is less than 2, we will take minus of this and u of minus n minus 1. So that way we have to change the signal based on the given ROC. So this Cauchy residue method will also be covered in your maths course in complex functions. Okay, so just we have utilized that we know how to evaluate a complex integral. We have utilized that fact and used it to find the inverse z transform. But the more trivial method is the partial fraction method. So let us see some of the common transforms that you need to remember. First is the impulse function. The transform for impulse function would be 1. Next is unit step function. We saw for a raised to power n un, it would be a can be taken as 1 here. So 1 upon 1 minus z inverse. Okay, because there was 1 upon 1 minus a z inverse. If I keep a is equal to 1, it will be un. Okay, similarly nun, the z transform would be z upon z minus 1 whole square. Okay, so this way we can define. So these are some of the common transform. Like if you take, we can take like this, u of minus n minus 1 also. It will also have same same z transform, but the thing is ROC would change. Mod z is less than 1, here mod z would be greater than 1. So you always keep in mind that this would be the Fourier transform. These two signals will have the same Fourier transform, but their ROCs would be different. Similarly, we can define for a raised to power n un, it would be z upon z minus a. ROC would be mod z is greater than a. And minus a raised to power n u of minus n minus 1, it would be z upon z minus a, but ROC would be mod z is less than a. So these two signals are most important for your z transform that you need to remember, because then only you will be able to take inverse z transform if you remember the expression for these two signals. So let us see what we have covered in this lecture is, we first saw what is the motivation behind z transform. We then saw analysis and synthesis equation. We then saw what is the relation between S and Z. Then we saw what we saw then we saw inverse Z transform, how to calculate using partial fraction method and Cauchy residue method, and at last we saw some of the common transforms that you need to remember. So this is what we have covered in this lecture. In the next lecture, what we'll do is we'll study the properties of Z transform so that we can arrive at Z transform of many more signals from the limited set of signals. Okay, till then try to practice some problems on this analysis and synthesis equation of the Z transform, as it is also one of the most important topic from signals and systems. Solution. Hi guys, in the last lecture we introduced to you the Z transform. We saw that Z transform is defined for discrete time signals and it can be calculated something like this. xz is equal to sigma n is equal to minus infinity up to infinity xn z raised to the power minus n. And similarly we saw inverse z transform xn was given by closed loop integral 1 by 2 pi j then xz z raised to the power n minus 1 dz. Okay, this was the z transform at the inverse z transform. So in this lecture what we'll do is we'll see some of the properties of the z transform to know how we can derive z transform for more or wider range of the signals than we already can. Okay, so that I don't have to derive the z transform from scratch every time. First property is the linearity. As with the other transform, linearity is also valid here. That is, if a signal x1n has a z transform x1 of z, and if other signal x2n has a z transform of x2 z, then the signal a1 x1n plus a2 x2n will have a z transform of a1 x1z plus a2 x2z. This will be the z transform for this composite signal. So this is the property of linearity. Is it fine? And here if we talk about ROC, let us say the ROC of this is R1, the ROC of this is R2. So ROC of the composite signal would be R1 intersection R2. That is what I told you in the last lecture also. When we have more than one signals, then you have to take the intersection of ROC of the both signal. Next property is called as time reversal. So if xn has z transform of xz, okay, that is I know the z transform of xn signal, I want to know the z transform of time reversed signal, that is x of minus n. That z transform of this would be x of z inverse. Okay, that is the z would be taken as reciprocal, z will be replaced by 1 by z. Okay, so the ROC of this signal would be, if the ROC of this is R, ROC of this would be R inverse, that is set of points z such that 1 by z now belongs to R. Okay, earlier z belonged to R, now 1 by z should belong to R. That will be my new ROC because argument of x is 1 by z. So for convergence 1 by z should belong to R. That will be the new ROC. That is how we apply the property of time reversal. Next property is time shifting. Again, if xn has a ROC x of z, then if we take x of n minus n naught, the z transform would be z raised to the power minus n naught into xz. This would be my z transform. Okay, so here simply, if suppose we consider ROC as R here, here ROC would be again R. Okay, but the only thing is that since if you see here, we can write it like this, xz over z raised to the power n naught. So it is possible that at origin it will turn to infinity. So it will happen that it may be R minus origin. Okay, we may have to remove origin from the region of convergence because at origin this value may go up to infinity. So origin may not lie in the ROC. Okay, let us see one problem based on time shifting. So suppose if xn is given to be delta of minus n minus 1. Okay, first we must know that delta n has a z transform of 1. I told you in the last lecture. Now if you do delta n minus 1, the z transform would be z raised to power minus 1 into 1. It is equal to z inverse. Now if we do time reversal delta minus n minus 1, I told you in the time reversal it would be z inverse raised to the power minus 1. Z would be replaced by 1 by Z, so it will be Z. So delta of minus and minus 1 has a Z transform of Z. Okay. So here again, if you see, while applying properties, you need to break a single problem into a set of smaller problems. That is, I broke this problem into two parts. One is the time shifting, other is the time reversal. And then I have applied the properties to get the final result. Next problem, if you see, Z raised to the power 9 upon Z minus 9, and ROC is given to be mod Z greater than 9. Now, one thing I know is the Z transform of a raised to the power n un is 1 upon 1 minus a z inverse, that is Z upon Z minus a. So from this problem I can say Z upon Z minus 9 would correspond to a signal 9 raised to the power n un. Okay, because mod Z is greater than a. Is it fine? Now if we see, our signal is something like this. Z raised to the power 8 is multiplied. So this will be time shifted in time domain, n plus 8 u of n plus 8. Okay, because whenever we do time shifting, it is multiplied by Z raised to the power the shifting. Okay, here shifting is by 8, so Z raised to the power 8 will be multiplied. So this is how we can find the inverse Z transform by applying the properties of the Z transform. Next is the time expansion. Now suppose if I know xn has a Z transform xz, I define another signal, let us say x2n. What it is doing is, it is saying x of r if n is equal to rk, and it is 0 if n is not equal to rk. Okay, that means I am inserting zeros. If I am inserting zeros, that means I am expanding the signal. So here x2z would be x of z raised to the power k. Okay, I have inserted zeros in my original signal, so I have expanded my signal in time domain, and the Z transform would be x of z raised to the power k, and if ROC is r here, ROC would be r raised to the power 1 by k. It implies that z raised to the power k should belong to r. Earlier z belonged to r, now z raised to the power k should belong to r. Next is the scaling in z domain. Okay, scaling in z domain refers to if we know that xn has a z transform xz, and I multiply xn by a signal e raised to power j omega naught n xn, then the z transform would be xz divided by into e raised to power j omega naught. Okay, this is how we have scaled the frequency, or we have scaled in the z domain. Z has been scaled by a factor of e raised to power j omega naught. Okay, otherwise if we take something like this an xn, it would be x of z by a. Okay, so this should be minus j omega naught e raised to power minus j omega naught. Again, here you can remember the property like I told you in the case of Fourier transform or Laplace transform, that the sign here in time domain is opposite to the sign here in frequency domain when we are doing frequency scaling. So that will be the case. Okay, so here it will be x of z by a. This property is similar to what we studied in Laplace transform. Okay, Laplace transform we also had a similar property that x of at was giving me x of s by a. So similar property is here. Okay, is it fine? So this is how we can do the scaling in z domain. Next is the conjugation, that is if I take conjugate of xn. So if xn has a z transform of xz, then the conjugation x star n would have a z transform of x conjugate function of z conjugate. Is it fine? If ROC is R here, ROC will again be R here. ROC does not change. So here we have to take conjugate of the function as well as of the variable. That is z is equal to x plus iota y. So we have to make it x minus iota y. Now this function also would have real and imaginary part. That is real part of x plus j imaginary part of x. So we have to take x conjugate real part of x minus j imaginary part of x. So we have to do this also, and inside x we have to put z conjugate. Okay, we have to take conjugate of x and put z conjugate instead of z inside that function. Next property is convolution. Okay, suppose x1n has a z transform of x1z and x2n has a z transform of x2z. Then x1n convolved with x2n would have a z transform of x1z into x2z. Again, in frequency domain, z domain, Laplace domain, the transforms will get multiplied for convolution in the time domain. Okay, here also ROC would be R1 intersection R2. Okay, ROC of this is R1 R2, so it will be R1 intersection R2. So earlier, as I told you, here again, since we have more than one signal, so we have to take intersection of both the signals. Next is first difference. First difference means yn is defined like xn minus xn minus 1. Okay, so now if we take z transform both sides, yz is equal to xn would have xz. This is time shifted, z raised power minus 1 xz. So it will be 1 minus z inverse xz. So this will be the z transform of first difference. First difference because we are differencing xn minus 1. Just like first derivative, dx by dt is the first derivative, xn minus 1 is the first difference. Next is the accumulation. Suppose yn is defined something like this: sigma k is equal to minus infinity up to n xk. Okay, that is we are accumulating the value of x, or we are summing the value of x. So now if we wish to find the yz, so we can write something like this. Suppose yn minus 1 would be k is equal to minus infinity up to n minus 1 into x of k. Subtract these two equations. So here all the terms will be same except the n term. Nth term is extra in this summation. Other terms are same in both the summation. So we will just take nth term xn. Now if we take z transform both sides, it would be yz minus z inverse yz is equal to xz. So now if we want to find yz, yz would be xz upon 1 minus z inverse. Okay, just like in derivative, we had derivative and integration had different opposite properties. Here first difference and accumulation have different properties. First difference is multiplication by 1 minus z inverse, and accumulation is division by 1 minus z inverse. Just like in Laplace, we had sxs and xs upon s in differentiation and integration respectively. Next is if we want to differentiate a function in z domain. So if xn has a z transform of x of z, then nxn would have a z transform of minus z d by dz of xz. Okay, so this you need to remember with this sign, that nxn would have a z transform of minus z into dxz by dz. Okay, this is a very important property that you must always remember. So let us take an example on this. Suppose if I want to find the n a raised to power n un. So I know that a raised to power n un has a z transform z upon z minus a. Okay, this will be the z transform. So now suppose if I multiply it by n a raised to power n un, it would be minus z dy dz of this function. So derivative would be z minus a minus z upon z minus a square. So it will be equal to az upon z minus a square. This will be the z transform of the n a raised to the power n un. Next we move on to the initial and final value theorem that we also studied in the Laplace transform. This we are going to study in Z transform also, but for discrete time signals. Okay, for discrete time signals we will consider this initial and final value theorem. So initial value gives the value of x0. x0 is basically equal to limiting z tending to infinity xz. So just look carefully here. In Laplace transform, if we were taking x0, it was limiting s tending to infinity sxs. Here there is no multiplicating factor. Okay, we do not have to multiply by anything. It is simply limiting z tending to infinity xz. But here we had to multiply by s. Similarly, x infinity for z transform would be limiting z tending to 1 z minus 1 into xz. Okay, and x infinity in continuous time is limiting s tending to 0 s xs. To remember this, what you can do is, since here s was tending to 0, here z minus 1 should tend to 0, that is z should tend to 1. Okay, if z tends to 1, then z minus 1 tends to 0. So this is similar to the final value theorem in the Laplace domain. Just for remembering sake, I am telling it is not a concept, or it does not have any relation with that. Just if you want to remember, you can relate both the properties in that manner. Okay. Next we move on to how can we identify causality of a system by Z transform. I know in time domain causality is when Hn is equal to 0 for n less than 0. This is the condition for causality in the time domain. But now I want to know causality in Z domain. So first of all, order of numerator should always be less than order of denominator. Okay, while applying this property, numerator order should be always less than denominator. Okay, so there in Laplace domain, what I was telling is ROC must be right of the rightmost pole. Okay, in S domain, what we were telling, right of rightmost pole. Here in Z domain, what we will say is outside of outermost pole. Okay, because here the poles are in the form of circles, like I was telling, mod z is greater than mod a. So it was in the form of a circle. This was my ROC. So here ROC is in the term of circles. That's why I am saying outside of the outermost pole, because outermost pole will also be present in the form of circle. So it should be outside the circle which is corresponding to the outermost pole. Okay, draw circles corresponding to each pole. Then outside the outermost circle, if ROC is lying, then it will be a causal signal. Similarly, stability. In stability in S domain, what I said, that j omega x's must lie in ROC. And in the last lecture, when we were studying about mapping between S domain and Z domain, I told you j omega x's is mapped to unit circle. Okay, so here what we will say in Z domain is, for stability, unit circle must lie in ROC. Okay, unit circle must be lying there in ROC, then only the system would be stable. Okay, so for causality and stability both, if we want to apply both properties together, ROC must be outside outermost pole, as well as it should include unit circle. That means outermost pole should be within inside the unit circle. Okay, outermost pole should lie inside the unit circle so that ROC can include unit circle. Now suppose if outermost pole is at radius 2, then ROC would be this. It will not include unit circle. But if I want it to include unit circle, then this pole must be inside the unit circle. So causality and stability combined can tell all poles must lie in unit circle. Okay, if all poles lie inside unit circle, then system would be stable as well as causal. Okay, so let us take an example for this. Suppose this is a xz, we need to find the inverse z transform. Okay, so let us first break it into the partial fraction. It would be 1 minus 3 by 4 z inverse over 1 minus half z inverse 1 minus 1 by 4 z inverse. This form it will be. Okay, so we see here we have two poles, that is mod z equal to, what it will be, mod z equal to half and mod z equal to 1 by 3. These two poles are there. So if we plot, we can have like this, two concentric circles, one of radius 1 by 3, other of radius 1 by 2. So we have three ROCs possible. First let us say ROC is outside, mod z is greater than half, first ROC. So this mod z is greater than half is outside the outermost pole. Okay, and it also includes unit circle, so system is causal and stable. Other can be mod z can lie between 1 by 3 and 1 by 2. Here it is not outside the outermost pole. Okay, and it does not include unit circle, so it is non-causal and unstable. Next is mod z is less than 1 by 3, so it is inside the innermost pole. So if it is inside the innermost pole, then it is anti-causal and unstable. Okay, it is anti-causal and unstable. So this way, anti-causal means inside the innermost pole. Anti-causal actually means like unit step is a causal signal, it is 0 before 0, and u of minus t is anti-causal signal because it is 0 after 0. Okay, so that is time reversal of causal signal yields an anti-causal signal. So this would be anti-causal and unstable. This is how we define the causality and stability of the system based on the ROC in the Z domain and S domain. So we can define causality and stability in time domain as well as in frequency domain. In frequency domain, we need region of convergence to define causality and stability. So this is how we utilize Z transform. In the next few lectures, we will solve some problems based on Z transform that have come in GATE examination to see how do we apply Z transform in the GATE exam. Till then, try to memorize the properties so that you can use it for problem solving skills. Okay. So in what we have learnt in this lecture is properties like linearity we saw time shifting, time scaling, then frequency scaling, that is scaling in Z domain, time reversal, then we saw conjugation, convolution, differentiation with respect to Z, first difference, accumulation. These were the properties that we saw. Then we saw initial value theorem and final value theorem, and at last we saw causality and stability. Okay, Z transform is very important topic from gate perspective. So try to memorize all the properties, and it would be better if you can relate the properties with that of Laplace transform, so that you can keep that in mind during the examination. It will be easier to remember in that manner. Okay, so in next lecture we'll solve some problems based on this topic. Hi guys, in the last two lecture we covered Z transform. We saw how can we calculate Z transform and various properties of the Z transform. So in this lecture we'll apply those concepts, and we'll be solving a few problems that have come in the gate examination from this topic. So this topic covers vast majority of the gate problems from signals and systems. It has a very high weightage when it comes to the gate examination. So be careful while attempting the problems, because sometimes you may get confused and end up committing an error. That will earn you only negative marks, and that won't help you in any way. So try to be well aware of what kind of problems can be asked, and try to be good at those kind of problems. So let us start with the first problem. Here we have been given a signal fz, and we need to find the inverse Z transform of this signal. Okay, so fz is equal to 1 by z plus 1. So I can write it like this: 1 minus z upon z plus 1 is equal to 1 minus 1 upon 1 plus z inverse, 1 minus 1 upon 1 minus z inverse. Okay, so this way it will be there. Then if I want to find ft, inverse Z transform of 1 would be delta n, and inverse Z transform of this is minus 1 raised to power n un. Okay, because of this minus sign it will be minus 1 raised to power n and un, because I know that a raised to power n un has a Z transform of 1 by 1 minus a z inverse. So if you see here, a is equal to minus 1, so it will be minus 1 raised to the power n un. That is why I am telling this is the most important Z transform, which will be used along with the properties to arrive at different Z transforms of given signals. Okay, so this will be my time domain signal, or it will be f of n. Okay, this will be my time domain signal. Moving on to the next problem, we have been given a discrete time signal xz, whose Z transform we have been given. Okay, we need to find the signal which is orthogonal to this signal. So first let us understand what is orthogonality. In vectors we define orthogonality in terms of function, in terms of dot product, and I told you while taking transforms orthogonality is defined when the inner product goes to 0. That is x1n and x2n should go to 0. That is summation from n is equal to minus infinity up to infinity. x1n, x2n should be 0. Product of two signals and summed from minus infinity up to infinity would go to 0. These will be called as orthogonal signals. Okay, so we have been given signals in terms of Z transform. We need to find the orthogonality. First we need to convert them to time domain. So let us convert the given signal that is given to us. So this signal, if you say here Z has power 2n, that is Z has only even powers. If Z has only even powers, that means the signal has only points at where n is equal to even. Signal is non-zero only at even points. So this xn would be simply at n is equal to 0, it would be half delta n. Then n is equal to 1, 3 by 3, it will be 1 delta, but n is equal to 1 cannot be there, n is equal to 2 can only be there. So delta n plus 2. Then n is equal to 2, we can write 3 raised to the power to 9, 9 plus by 4, 9 by 4, delta n plus 4. Okay, because of this 2n, the impulses that are coming are n plus 2, n plus 4. Similarly, if we substitute 3, it will be 27 by 5, delta n plus 6. So if you see here, all the impulses are at n is equal to even, that is 0, minus 2, minus 4, minus 6. All the impulses are like that only. Is it fine? So let us see now, one by one, what are the signals that are given in the options. Okay. So the first signal that is given to us, 2 by 3 raised to power n, z raised to power minus n. So we know y1n is 2 by 3 raised to the power n un. Now it has impulses both at odd and even points. So when it will be multiplied by xn, the product will never tend to 0. The product will never go to 0. So this cannot be orthogonal to my original signal, because the even number of points will give me a finite value of the summation. Talking about y2n, it will be 5n minus n z raised to power minus 2n plus 1. Okay. So the impulses that will be there is, suppose n is equal to 0, it will be minus 1. N is equal to 0, sorry, n is equal to 0, it will be 1. So 1, and it will be n is equal to 0, z raised to power minus 1. So delta n minus 1. Then n is equal to 2, this will be 25 minus 2. Sorry, n is equal to 1, it will be 5 minus 1, 4. 4, and here it will be delta n minus 3. Okay, plus n is equal to 2, it will be 25 minus 2, 23, delta n minus 5. Now if you see, this signal has impulses at odd points 1, 3, 5, whereas this signal has impulses at even points. Okay, that means if it has at the odd points and it has only at the even points, the product would always be 0, because impulse at 2 is not present, impulse at 2 is present. So I can write like this, 0 delta n minus 2. Okay, so when it will be multiplied by delta n minus 2, it will be 0. So that way, one has the points at odd points, other has only even points, so the product would always be 0. If I plot on the graph, it would be something like this. One signal had values at 0, then minus 2, then minus 4, then minus 6, and other signal had the points 1, then 3, then 5, this way. Now if you multiply these two signals, there is no common part, so their product, let us say x1n, x2n, x1n into x2n is always 0. So these signals are orthogonal to each other. Is it fine? So these both signals will be orthogonal, because one exists in the negative n and one exists for the positive n. Otherwise, one exists for even n, other exists for odd n. So their product would always be 0. So that is why this signal is orthogonal to the original given signal. Okay. Other signals, if you check, they will also not be orthogonal. Like this signal would be 2 raised to power minus mod n. Okay. So it exists both for positive and negative n, and the product would be non-zero. And this is simply delta n minus 4 plus delta n minus 2 plus delta n. So this term is common between original signal and the yn. Okay, yn has z delta n common with this signal, so their product would be non-zero. Okay, this term would give me a net product. Moving on to the next problem. here we have been given xz as z upon z minus a square with mod z is greater than a. We need to find residue of x raised to xz z raised to power n minus 1 at z is equal to a. So residue of xz z raised to power n minus 1 would be 1 by m minus 1 factorial limiting z tending to a, then dm minus 1 by dz m minus 1 of xz z raised to power n minus 1 into z minus a raised to the power m. So if you see here, the pole is at a of order 2. So we will say 1 upon 2 minus 1 factorial, that will be 1 factorial, into limiting z tending to a, then derivative would be single derivative, function would be z upon z minus a square into z minus a square into z raised power n minus 1. So this will get cancelled out. So it will be limiting z tending to a d by dz of z raised power n. So it will be limiting z tending to a n z raised power n minus 1 is equal to n a raised power n minus 1. So this will be my time domain signal. It will be n a raised power n minus 1 u of n. Okay, so this is how we can calculate inverse Z transform using the residue method. Just we need to calculate the residue at the pole, and that would give me the signal. Next is we need to find the Z transform of this signal. This signal is basically an impulse train. Okay, so first let us see delta n has a Z transform of 1. So delta n minus k would have a Z transform of z raised to power minus k. So if we apply Z transform of sigma k is equal to 0 up to infinity delta n minus k, so by linearity property it would be sigma k is equal to 0 to infinity Z transform of delta n minus k. So it will be sigma k is equal to 0 to infinity z raised to power minus k. So it will be 1 upon 1 minus z inverse. So it will be z upon z minus 1, and ROC would be mod z is greater than 1. Okay, this will be my ROC and this will be my Z transform. So here we have used the property of linearity because I have brought the Z transform inside the summation. So Z transform of a sum is equal to sum of Z transform. In the next question, we have been given an impulse response of the system Hz. We need to find Hn. Okay, ROC is given as mod z is less than 0.2. So if it is mod z is less than 0.2, that is inside this circle of 0.2 radius, that means since it is interior of a circle, the signal would be left sided. This indicates signal is left sided or anti-causal. Okay, it would be left sided. So Hz can be written as 1 upon 1 minus 0.2 Z inverse. So Hn can be written as minus 0.2 raised to power n u of minus n minus 1. Okay, this signal is left sided. Okay, if mod z was given to be greater than 0.2, then Hn would be 0.2 raised to the power n un. This would be Hn. Okay, but here due to the ROC being interior of a circle, the signal would be left sided, and we have to take the term u of minus n minus 1. In the next problem, we have been given a Z transform. We need to find the ROC of the Z transform of this signal. So first of all, the first signal, this is right sided. So ROC would be exterior of a circle. ROC would be mod Z greater than 5 by 6. This signal is left sided or anti-causal, so ROC would be interior of the circle, mod Z is less than 6 by 5. Now when both the signals are summed up, ROC would be intersection of this, mod Z greater than 5 by 6 intersection with mod Z less than 6 by 5. So total would be 5 by 6, mod Z is greater than 5 by 6 and less than 6 by 5. This would be my ROC of the entire sequence. Okay. In the next problem, we have been given xz and we need to find z transform of xn. Okay. Here ROC is entire z plane except origin. Okay. Origin is not there because this term would go to infinity if z is equal to 0. So first let us understand delta n has a z transform of 1 and z raised to power n naught minus n naught, sorry, and if we shift it, delta n minus n naught would have a z transform of z raised to power minus n naught. Okay, so this term is 5 z square, it would be corresponding to 5 delta n plus 2. 4 z inverse is corresponding to 4 delta n minus 1 and 3 corresponds to 3 delta n. So the signal would be 5 delta n plus 2 plus 3 delta n plus 4 delta n minus 1. So this signal is limited in time domain, only 3 impulses are there. So it exists from -2 up to 1 only. That is why the ROC is entire Z plane. For any time limited signal, ROC would be entire Z plane except 0 and infinity. Okay. In this problem, we have been again given a Z transform. We need to find the final value. Okay. We need to find final value of this signal. So final value can be found out by using final value theorem. Okay. For finding final value theorem is given as C infinity is equal to limiting z tending to 1 z minus 1 Cz, or we can say limiting z tending to 1 z minus 1 by z Cz, because since z is tending to 1 I can divide by z, limiting z tending to 1 minus z inverse Cz. Okay, so you must remember both forms of the final value theorem. Okay, so let us now apply the second form. Because the denominator has 1 minus z inverse term, that is why I am converting it to 1 minus z inverse. So it would be, first let us simplify Cz, 1 by 4 z inverse. Here I can apply the property of a square minus b square, 1 minus z minus 2, 1 minus 1 plus z minus 2. Okay, then upon 1 minus z inverse square. Again I can apply a square minus b square, 1 plus z inverse, 1 minus z inverse, 1 plus z raised to power minus 2 over 1 minus z inverse square. So this would get cancelled out. Now if I want to find C infinity, it would be limiting z tending to 1 minus z inverse Cz. So let us substitute this value of Cz in this expression. So if I multiply it by 1 minus z inverse, this term would get cancelled out in the denominator. So C infinity would be limiting z tending to 1 z inverse by 4, 1 plus z inverse and 1 plus z inverse square. Okay, so it would be 1 by 4 into 2 into 2, that is 1. So C infinity is 1. So that is how we apply final value theorem. So you need to take care whether you will use 1 minus z inverse term in the z transform or z minus 1 term. That depends which term is present in the question. Here, since we had 1 minus z inverse, so I use the another form of final value theorem. Moving on to the next problem. Here we have been given xz is equal to 0.5 by 1 minus 2z inverse. So xz is 0.5 divided by 1 minus 2z inverse. It would be 0.5 z upon z minus 2. Okay, and we have been given that region of convergence of xz includes unit circle. Now this can have two ROCs, mod z is greater than 2 or mod z is less than 2. These two ROCs are possible. Now this one does not contain unit circle. If mod z is greater than 2, this does not contain unit circle, but this contains unit circle. Okay, that means my ROC is mod z is less than 2. So it implies signal would be left sided. Okay, signal would exist from minus infinity up to 0. So now if signal exists from minus infinity up to 0, if we take the inverse z transform, we would write xn is equal to 0.5 into minus 2 raised to power n u of minus n minus 1. Okay, so this would be my signal. So at n is equal to 0, x0 would be 0 because of u minus 1 being 0. So this will be my initial value, you can say, but this, since this signal is anti-causal, this is actually final value. Okay, for anti-causal signals, x0 is the final value and x of minus infinity is the initial value. For causal signals, x0 is the initial value and x of infinity is the final value. Okay, moving on to the next problem. We have been given a RC circuit and the output of RC circuit is sampled using a sampler at 10 Hz frequency. Then we have taken the Z transform. So first let us analyze this RC circuit. Okay, in RC circuit we know capacitor voltage is Vs 1 minus e raised power minus t by tau. Time constant would be RC, that is 200 into 10 raised power 3 into 10 raised power minus 5, that is 2 seconds. So capacitor voltage is Vct is 1 minus t by 2, but we need to find the voltage across a resistor. It is equal to Vs minus Vc, so it will be 5 e raised power minus t by 2. Now since we are sampling this signal, we know we will substitute t by nts. Ts is basically 1 upon sampling frequency, 1 upon 10, that is equal to 0.1 second. So if we substitute here, n would be 5 e raised power minus 0.05 n u of n, because here also it would be ut. Switch is closed at t is equal to 0, so this will start from t is equal to 0. So here we will get un. This would be my voltage across the resistance. Okay, so now we know this output xn. We need to find this Z transform xz. Okay, xn is basically 5 e raised power minus 0.05 n un. Now I know un has a Z transform of z upon z minus 1, and then e raised power minus 0.05 n un would have z e raised power 0.05 upon z e raised power 0.05 minus 1. Okay, so 5 e raised power minus 0.05 n un would be, if we divide by e raised power 0.05, 5z z minus e power minus 0.05. If we talk about ROC, it will be mod z is greater than e raised to power 0.05. Okay, this would be my ROC of this Z transform. So this way we have combined multiple concepts in this single problem. There we have applied sampling and also the Z transform. So such kind of questions are common in GATE examination, where more than one concepts will be utilized to find the answer. That is why you always need to keep an open mind. You do not need to think in terms of what concept can be applied here and what equation can be applied. First read the question and then identify what all concepts are involved. Don't go after concepts right away. So we'll solve some more problems on this and then we'll move on to the next chapter, that is sampling. Hi guys, in the last lecture we solved some of the problems that were based on the Z transform. So in this lecture we are also gonna see some problems that are based on discrete time systems and Z transform, because discrete time systems can also be characterized in terms of Z transform. So we'll see how can we relate the concepts of discrete time system with the Z transform that we have learnt in this chapter. So let us start with our first problem. Here we have been given a xn signal with z transform as z raised to power 4 plus z square minus 2z plus 2 minus 3z minus 4 is applied as an input to a LTI system with impulse response Hn is equal to 2 delta n minus 3. We need to find the output at n is equal to 4. So impulse response Hn is equal to 2 delta n minus 3. So if we take z transform, Hz would be 2z minus 3. Okay, now I know yn is equal to xn convolved with hn. That means yz would be xz, so xz multiplied by hz. So let me find out yz by multiplying hz into xz. It will be 2z plus z raised to the power will be 2z z raised to the power minus 1, then minus 4 z raised to the power minus 2 plus 4 z raised to the power minus 3 minus 6 z raised to the power minus 7. Now if we take inverse z transform of this signal yz to find out yn would come out to be 2 delta n plus 1 plus delta n minus 1 minus 4 delta n minus 2 plus 4 delta n minus 3 minus 6 delta n minus 7. Now if we substitute n is equal to 4 into this expression, it would be 2 delta 5 plus delta 3 minus 4 delta 2 plus 4 delta 1 minus 6 delta minus 3. We know delta function is 0 at all places except at n is equal to 0. So this would be 0. So y4 comes out to be 0. Okay. So this is how we can apply the Z transform to find the output of a system. And here we have made use of the convolution theorem. Moving on to the next problem. Here we know the impulse response of a discrete time system Hn. We need to find Hz. Hn is minus 5 raised to the n u of minus n minus 1. Now this signal is left sided, due to which I know ROC would be interior of a circle. first let us find hz. Hz would be 1 upon 1 minus 5 z inverse, or we can say z upon z minus 5. Now since this is left sided, ROC would be mod z is less than 5. Now since mod z is less than 5, unit circle belongs to ROC. Okay, the interior of mod z is equal to 5 would also contain unit circle. That means system is also stable. Okay, so this means system is stable and anti-causal. So this is how we can identify stability and causality of the system using Z transform. Here since ROC is the interior of some circle, so the signal is or the system is anti-causal, and since ROC includes unit circle, that means the system is stable. Okay, now in this problem we have been given a block diagram implementation of this system. We need to find the transfer function. So let us first find out. Here you must remember D represent unit delay. Unit delay means, let me first explain it. If a signal xn goes into a delay element, the output would be x of n minus 1. So this is called as unit delay. Unit because delay of 1 unit. Okay, so this is unit delay system. So let us first identify the signal at various points. Here the signal would be 4x n minus 1. Here it would be x of n minus 3. 3 delay units, 1, 2, 3. X of n minus 3. So the signal here, that is y1n. y1n is coming, xn is coming from here. xn. 4 of xn minus 1 is coming from here. Plus 4 of xn minus 1. Then 5 of xn minus 3 is coming from bottom. 5 of xn minus 3. In such kind of problems, each node or each intersection represents summation. So whatever signals are incident at that node will be summed up to give the outgoing signal. Or you can consider it in terms of KCL. Sum of incoming signals will be equal to the outgoing signal. So outgoing is y1n, incoming is xn plus the signals that are coming from the loop. Okay, so these will be the case. So if we take Z transform, y1z is equal to xz plus 4z inverse xz plus 5 z raised power minus 3 xz. So it implies y1z by xz would be 1 plus 4 z inverse plus 5 z minus 3. Let us consider it as first equation. Now let us move on to the further block. Okay, we are moving on to the next block. Here the signal that would be coming is yn minus 1. Here it would be y of n minus 2. Okay, so now if we take here, the signal would be minus 2 y of n minus 1. So this is again summing point. So we can directly write here y1n is incoming signal. Other incoming signal is this, that is minus 2 yn minus 1. Other incoming signal is this, that is minus 3 yn minus 2. Outgoing signal is yn. Sum of incoming signals is equal to outgoing signal. So y1n is equal to basically yn plus 2y n minus 1 plus 3y n minus 2. Okay, this will be the equation. Again let us take the Z transform on both sides. So we will get y1z is equal to, it will be yz plus 2z inverse yz plus 3z minus 2yz. That is yz 2z inverse plus 3z minus 2. Okay, so if we compare y1z from both equations, first and second, so we can write 1 plus 4z inverse plus 5z minus 3 into xz is equal to yz 1 plus 2z inverse plus 3z minus 2. So we can say yz upon xz, or the transfer function would be 1 plus 4z inverse plus 5z minus 3 upon 1 plus 2z inverse plus 3z minus 2. This will be my transfer function between yz and xz. Okay, between input and output, this will be my transfer function. So this is how we solve a block diagram question for implementation of the system. Okay, moving on to the next problem. Here we are given two Z transform xz and yz of signals xn and yn, and we are told that impulse response of a system Hn is related to these two signals like this. So let us see, if xn has Z transform xz, then by time shifting property xn minus 1 would have as Z transform of Z inverse xz, which is equal to Z inverse minus 3 Z inverse square. Okay, this would be the Z transform. Now we know, according to convolution theorem, this equation implies Hz is equal to Z inverse xz into yz. So I can say Hz would be product of these two, Z inverse minus 3Z minus 2 to 1 plus 2Z minus 2. We have to take product of these two terms. So the product of these two terms would come out to be, Hz would be Z minus 1 minus 3Z minus 2 plus 2Z minus 3 minus 6Z minus 4. This would be my Hz. Okay. Now I have been told that input applied to the system is, here we have been told that the input applied for the system is delta n minus 1. We need to find the output, delta n minus 1. Now xz would be Z inverse by time shifting property. I know yz would be xz into hz. Okay, this would be my yz. So it would be Z minus 2 minus 3 Z minus 3 plus 2Z minus 4 minus 6Z minus 5. So taking inverse Z transform, yn would be delta n minus 2 minus 3 delta n minus 3 plus 2 delta n minus 4 minus 6 delta n minus 5. So this option B would be correct. This would be my output response of the system. Okay, so this is basically the problems that we are seeing just now, is just they are based on the properties of the Z transform. So we need to remember the properties of Z transform very well, because most of the question can be solved from the properties directly. So let us move on to the next problem. We have been given a Z transform of a signal xn equal to this. Now it is applied to a system with transfer function hz is equal to 3z inverse minus 2. Now I know for any system yz is equal to hz into xz. So we need to multiply this to 3z inverse minus 2 into 4z minus 3, 3z minus 1, so if we take the product would come out to be 12z minus 4 minus 8z minus 3 minus 9z minus 2 minus 4 minus 18z minus 6z square minus 4z cube. This would be the product of these two. So now if we take inverse Z transform, we would arrive at the output response. So Yn would be 12 delta n minus 4 minus 8 delta n minus 3 minus 9 delta n minus 2 minus 4 delta n minus 8 18 delta n plus 1 minus 6 delta n plus 2 minus 4 delta n plus 3. These would be the terms in my response. Okay, so now if you see here, since Yn contains terms like this also, so Yn is not equal to 0 for n less than 0. This implies Yn is non-causal. Here my Yn or the response is non-causal. But if you see, we have finite number of terms. We have total of 7 terms. That means it has finite duration or finite support. So though it is non-causal signal, but it has a finite duration, so option A would be correct. That Yn is a finite duration signal, but it is non-causal. Okay. In the next problem, we have been given the transfer function of the system and input. We need to find the output. So first let us convert xn into xz. It would be 2 plus z. Okay, because delta n has a z transform equal to 1. So if we want to find yz, it is equal to hz into xz. So it would be 2z z minus 1 over z plus 2 whole square into z plus 2. So it would be 2z z minus 1 over z plus 2. Now if we break it, it would be something like 2z minus 6z over z plus 2. If we take inverse z, it would be delta n plus 1 minus 6 into 2 raised to the power n un. Okay, that would be minus 2 raised to the power n, because here we are getting plus sign. Z upon z minus minus 2, it would be minus 2 raised to the power n un. So this would be my response of the system. The output of the system in time domain would be this function. Moving on to the next problem. Here we have been given Z transform of a discrete time signal xn is equal to xz. Now we need to find initial value. So initial value can be found out by applying initial value theorem. So we know x of 0 is limiting z tending to infinity x of z, limiting z tending to infinity 0.5 z square over z minus 1 into z minus 0.5. It would be limiting z tending to infinity 0.5 over 1 minus 1 by z, 1 minus 0.5 by z. Now the terms containing z would go to 0 as z tends to infinity, so it would be 0.5. So initial value of the signal is 0.5. Okay, so this is how we apply the initial value theorem. But one thing that you must always remember is, here first we need to check the location of poles and order of numerator and denominator. Since this was initial value theorem, so location of poles doesn't matter that much. But if it were to find final value theorem, if we were to apply final value theorem, then we must always remember poles should lie inside unit circle. Okay, poles should lie inside unit circle for applying final value theorem, but since this is initial value theorem, we can apply directly. In the next problem, we have been given a Z transform pair xn and is equal to xz. We need to find Z transform of the signal x minus n convolved with xn. First let us see what happens we take x minus n. It would be x of minus x of 1 by z. It is equal to 1 by z square over 1 by z square minus 16. I have replaced z by 1 by z. So it is equal to 1 upon 1 minus 16 z square. Now I know x of minus n is convolved with xn. So z transform would be x of 1 by z multiplied by x of z. So it would be 1 minus 16 z square into z square by z square minus 16. So this would come out to be z square over 16 minus 257 z square plus 257 z square minus 16 plus 257 z square minus 16 z4. This would be my z transform of this signal. Just we need to take the product of these two functions. Okay. So here we have applied two properties. One is the time reversal and other is the convolution theorem. In the last problem, we have been given a signal which is a composite signal composed of these two signals. Now if you observe, this is a right sided signal and this is a left sided signal. Okay, we need to find ROC. So since this is a right sided, ROC would be mod z greater than mod b. Okay, since this is left sided, first transform this signal like this. Since this is b raised to the power minus n, it would be 1 by b raised to the power n. So ROC would be mod z is less than 1 by b. Okay, now I know mod b is less than 1. So mod b is less than 1 by b. Okay, this value is smaller, this value is greater. So the intersection would be z lies between mod b and mod 1 by b. This would be the range of z for my ROC. So this would be my region of convergence. So that is how we can find the region of convergence, by taking intersection of both ROCs when we have more than one signals in addition or subtraction. So such kind of problems can be formulated from Z transform. The only thing is that you need to be careful with your steps so that you don't commit a error. Otherwise it is simple enough. So in the next chapter we'll start sampling. We'll see how we can convert analog signals into discrete time signals.